Gen Z doesn't want to work anymore, and between these dogshit wages and this totally broken economy, we should all completely support them on this. But society will collapse if nobody works. This is a common rebuttal from delusional boomers and corporate shills I'm sure you've all heard by now. This actually isn't entirely true. There's a major caveat to the statement, but we'll get into that a bit later. But the main problem with the statement is that this applies to many other things as well, not just work. For example, society will also collapse eventually if nobody has kids. Now, I know historically speaking, people and especially women were shamed for not having kids, but we've made a lot of progress on that front, and today, generally speaking, we don't judge, shame, or criticize someone for choosing not to have kids. Don't worry, I'm not one of those weird tradcons trying to force everyone into having kids again. Quite the opposite. I'm a childless 35-year-old millennial myself. I may or may not choose to have kids in the future. I really don't know and don't care right now, to be honest. I'm just pointing out a major logical inconsistency here. The argument that, but society will collapse if nobody works, is always used to hardcore blame, shame, and humiliate people who choose to be unemployed. But the exact same argument can be applied to people who choose not to have kids. Society will also eventually collapse if everyone stops having kids. This is just a fact, and it's already happening right now in many countries right in front of our eyes as we speak. So why is it that we generally respect someone's personal choice to not have kids, but we hardcore shame them for their personal choice to not work? Wait, stop. I know what you're thinking. It's because if you don't work, then you're a burden to others who do work. But wait, once again, this exact same argument can also be applied to those who choose not to have kids. Somebody who puts in the immense time, money, and energy investment into raising kids is raising a future worker for society. And when this kid grows up, he will eventually have to pay for the social security check of someone who didn't have kids. So it's funny to me how we relentlessly complain about paying a few extra tax dollars to support struggling families on welfare. Why should I have to pay for somebody else's kids, right? And yeah, I highly doubt we'll be complaining about welfare when these kids grow up and have to pay our social security. So who's really the burden on who here? Now, once again, I want to reiterate that I'm not telling you to have kids. I'm not even sure if I want them myself. I'm just asking a simple question here. If everyone chooses to stop having kids, society will collapse. Just like if everyone chooses to stop working, society will collapse. So why do we respect their decision to not have kids, but we relentlessly hardcore shame them for their decision to not work? Well, I did some digging, and as it turns out, it's just another psy-op, another psychological manipulation tactic from delusional boomers and corporate shills used to blame, shame, and gaslight you into accepting these dogshit low wages and slavery-esque working conditions that they want to force you into. Hey guys, just wanted to say real quick, thank you all so much for 20,000 subscribers now. Wow, I seriously am so grateful. I have no words, like we're just growing so fast right now. It feels like just yesterday we hit 10K. So yeah, just wanted to say thanks, and if you're new here and enjoying this content, definitely consider subscribing for more epic takedowns of all these evil corporate lies. Part 1, bullshit jobs. So, do you remember in the beginning of the video when I told you that the phrase society will collapse if nobody works is not entirely true? It's only true if you add a major caveat to it. Society will collapse if nobody does essential work is the actual true statement here. You all remember not that long ago when the whole world shut down and only those labeled essential workers were allowed to actually keep working. This just totally proved that the overwhelming majority of jobs are not essential. The late great anthropologist David Graeber made a great case for this in his now famous book, Bullshit Jobs. Graeber makes the case that around 50% of jobs serve no real meaning or purpose, and he gives several very compelling examples. Perhaps the most iconic one from his book is the doorman at luxury hotels. who spends most of his day dressed in a fancy costume and putting a fake professional look on his face. His only job, so to speak, is to open the door for the rich guests of the luxury hotel. And let's face it, society is not going to collapse if he decides to stop working and rich people have to open their own doors. In fact, not only do these bullshit jobs not contribute to society, a lot of them actually actively harm society. The best example of this is a corporate lawyer. Everyone agrees monopolies are bad, right? Whether you're a capitalist or a communist, we can all pretty much universally agree that monopolies are bad. Well, a lot of monopolistic companies staff armies of corporate lawyers whose sole purpose is to find and exploit legal loopholes to protect their monopoly. They contribute absolutely no benefit to society. In fact, they actively harm society because by helping maintain monopolies, they stifle healthy competition and innovation. Call me lazy for being unemployed all you want. Even if I contribute nothing to society, at least I'm not actively harming it the way corporate lawyers are. But this does lead to an interesting question and a bit of a paradox. You see, these delusional boomers and corporate shills constantly shame Gen Z for not wanting to work with the whole, but society will collapse if nobody works argument. Yeah, have you noticed that the essential workers, the ones who actually keep society from collapsing, they're the ones who get looked down on, spit on, and paid absolute dogshit wages from these same delusional boomers and corporate shills. Part 2, the essential worker paradox. Make no mistake about it, there are absolutely good, hardworking people who keep our society running. Farmers who grow the food that feed all of us, construction workers who build the houses and the infrastructure we all live in. Even grocery store workers, as I'm sure we'd all rather just buy a meal at the store than hunt for it in the wild. Now, if the logic for why we should all be forced to work is, but somebody has to work or society will collapse, I would totally be cool with this argument if the people who did the most essential jobs that keep society running were paid the most, looked up to for being successful, and treated well by society. If they do the most important jobs, it only makes sense that they get treated the best, right? Yeah, how does society actually treat these very essential workers? It depends on for its survival. You don't deserve a living wage. You're a low-skilled worker. He works at a grocery store? What a loser. You mean to tell me you should get $20 an hour for working at Walmart? This is probably the most disgusting behavior I've noticed when it comes to delusional boomers and corporate shills. These people spend their whole lives treating essential workers like crap and then subsequently performing mental gymnastics to justify it. They pay them like dog shit, treat them like dog shit, look down on them, spit on them, humiliate them, and we all know and have experienced this. And yet, when it comes time to defend their pathetic, broken system, they suddenly and magically become an essential worker's best friend overnight. Hey, somebody has to work or society will collapse. This argument is basically using essential workers as a meat shield to protect their joke of a system that only benefits them. Then after that, they can go right back to exploiting them for dogshit wages while they sit around doing nothing all day. I can't count how many times I've seen a corporate shill in the comments going, but if you don't work, you're a burden to the farmer who has to work to feed you. Funny thing is, I've never seen a comment like this from an actual farmer himself, only from people exploiting the farmer for their own profits. But here's the truth. Unless you're a farmer yourself, you're going to be a burden to farmers. Here's an interesting historical fact I learned from all my time making these videos. Did you know that a medieval farmer had anywhere between 100 to 150 days of holiday per year? They work less than half the amount a modern farmer has to work. How can this be? You're probably wondering. We have so much better technology and machines today that theoretically should make a modern farmer's job much easier. Well, the answer is because in medieval times, almost everyone did some level of agrarian farm work, while today, less than 2% of the population are farmers, which means they have to work way harder to feed the rest of us. And on top of that, they don't even get paid that well to do so, because like the rest of us, they're being forced to be exploited for capitalist profits. So, if you're so concerned about not being a burden to farmers or essential workers, it's not the unemployed who are the biggest burden to them here. In fact, a rich person working a bullshit job is probably going to be a much bigger burden, given that his consumption needs are going to be much, much higher, and his job either contributes nothing or even actively harms society. If you're so concerned about society collapsing if nobody wants to work, then you better be prepared to force corporate lawyers, middle managers, CEOs, and all these other useless bullshit jobs to work on a farm or in a grocery store for dogshit wages too. Because if everyone learned to have some level of self-sufficiency again, that's what would truly reduce the burden on essential workers. But yeah, I didn't think so. They shame you as being lazy for not wanting to work. That has nothing to do with their concern for the very essential workers they constantly spit on. It's so that they can shame, blame, and manipulate you into taking low-paying essential jobs yourself as well, so that they can continue to exploit you while doing absolutely nothing themselves. Part 3. The cognitive dissonance of work. AI has already replaced 14% of jobs, and this number is only going to get exponentially worse. But you don't even need to believe the AI hype. Long before AI took over, automation and outsourcing already replaced a significant amount of jobs. This is why it was already so hard to find a job, even long before AI existed. To me, the biggest argument for why Gen Z is right for not wanting to work isn't that work sucks, or is meaningless, or doesn't pay enough. Though those are all absolutely true as well. The biggest reason for me is that even if everyone actually wanted to work, there simply aren't enough jobs available for everyone now. Cognitive dissonance is a term you're probably all familiar with by now. It is a psychological phenomenon where a person has two beliefs that directly contradict each other, which causes immense mental discomfort. As a result, they're forced to resort to painstaking mental gymnastics coping mechanisms to try and reverse engineer an alternate version of reality where both these conflicting beliefs can coexist. And I believe delusional boomers, corporate shills, and modern society at large is experiencing a massive collective cognitive dissonance when it comes to our views around work. So, the two conflicting beliefs they hold are, number one, everyone should have a job, and number two, you're not entitled to a job. You've all heard them say this a million times. But these two beliefs are directly and fundamentally mutually exclusive. And I know people like to throw out the whole, those two arguments aren't mutually exclusive when they want to sound smart and win an argument, but there's just no angle for them to use this rebuttal with these two beliefs. They are literally as mutually exclusive as it gets. Since society is so hell-bent on hardcore blaming, shaming, and humiliating everyone who doesn't have a job, then it has a responsibility to ensure everyone can have a job in the first place. But clearly, it can't do that. People are literally applying to hundreds, even thousands of jobs with no response right now. They want you to get a job so bad to the point of shaming the living shit out of you for not having one. And yet, they can't even create an economy where you even can get a job in the first place. And thus, this is where the cognitive dissonance begins, and it gets really hilarious. If everyone should have a job, but not everyone can get one, then you have to resort to all kinds of hilarious cognitive dissonance mental gymnastics to justify your worldview. Well, those who don't have a job must just be lazy then, right? Okay, so everyone who doesn't have a job is lazy, right? So what happened during the 2008 financial crash? This was the cataclysmic event that led to the situation we're in today that we never really recovered from. At the peak of the crisis, the economy was losing over 700,000 jobs per month. So if everyone who doesn't have a job is lazy and it has nothing to do with the economy or system, does that mean in 2008, 700,000 people per month just randomly woke up one day and decided they wanted to be lazy for no reason? Or my favorite one, if you can't get a job, that's because you don't have any skills or education. Well then, how do you explain the fact that Gen Z and millennials are literally the most college-educated generations, and they're the ones who struggle the most with getting jobs? Well, you can't. So you have to take the cognitive dissonance one step further. They all got these useless gender studies degrees, so of course they're not going to get jobs with those. Okay, what about the fact that even most computer science degree graduates right now are having a hard time finding work with how oversaturated the tech job market is? Weren't you guys the same ones telling us to learn to code not that long ago? Yeah, well, just get into the trades is the next one. Yeah, nice idea, Boomer, until you realize that if everyone just gets into the trades, the same oversaturation problem that happened with coding and with general college degrees will happen to the trades as well. This endless cycle of cognitive dissonance just never ends. It just pushes the oversaturation problem from one field to the next to the next. So, it's time we burn our cognitive dissonance and face the reality of the world and economy we're living in. AI and automation have replaced enough jobs that not everyone can get a job anymore, and we need to find new solutions to reflect that reality. Universal basic income is absolutely going to become necessary, along with a general shift in our cultural mentality where just like we're no longer shamed for not having kids, we're no longer shamed for not working either. This, by the way, will be the actual solution to ensuring a better life for essential workers, as opposed to treating them like dirt and then using them as a meat shield when you need them to defend your pathetic, broken system. There won't be jobs for everyone anymore. It will be mathematically impossible. It already is mathematically impossible to give everyone a job, as I'm sure you've all noticed. Some jobs will remain, however, and those people will also be given UBI. And once their basic living expenses are covered, it will ensure that the work they do that upholds society will actually reward them with luxuries rather than just forcing them to work 60 hours a week to barely afford rent. Calling us lazy for not wanting to work isn't just a cognitive dissonance tactic. It's an outright disgusting and dark manipulation lie and a massive psy-op that corporations have used for centuries to keep us enslaved. We explore this more in this video right here. Check it out. I'll see you there. Thanks for watching.